สำนักงานคณะกรรมการกิจการกระจายเสียงกิจการโทรทัศน์และกิจการโทรคมนาคมแห่งชาติหรือกสทช.ร่วมสนับสนุนนโยบายเศรษฐกิจดิจิทัลหรือดิจิทัลอีโคโนมีของรัฐบาลจัดงาน NBTC Expo Thailand หรือ NET 2016 ในรูปแบบของงานสัมมนาวิชาการและงานประชุมเชิงวิชาการผู้บริหารระดับสูงภาครัฐและเอกชนเนื่องในโอกาสวันสื่อสารแห่งชาติประจำปี 2559 ในงานสัมมนาและการประชุมเชิงวิชาการผู้ร่วมประชุมได้เรียนรู้ถึงนโยบายของรัฐบาลจากพลอากาศเอกประจินจันตองรองนายกรัฐมนตรีในปาฐกถาพิเศษหัวข้อนโยบายดิจิทัลอีโคโนมีของประเทศไทยตามด้วยการบรรยายของนายดอนแท็บสกอตผู้บัญญัติคำว่าดิจิทัลอีโคโนมีเป็นคนแรกเมื่อ 20 ปีที่แล้วในหัวข้อเศรษฐกิจดิจิทัลโอกาสและความท้าทายสำหรับประเทศไทยนายดอนแท็บสกอตเป็นนักคิดและผู้นำทางความคิดชาวแคนาดาที่ได้รับการยอมรับในระดับโลกด้านนวัตกรรมสื่อและผลกระทบที่เทคโนโลยีมีต่อเศรษฐกิจและสังคมเป็นที่ปรึกษาให้กับผู้นำในภาครัฐและภาคธุรกิจในหลายประเทศนอกจากนั้นยังเป็นศาสตราจารย์วุฒิคุณในคณะการบริหารจัดการของ Rodman School of Management ที่มหาวิทยาลัยโตรอนโตและดำรงตำแหน่งอธิการบดีมหาวิทยาลัยเทรนต์ประเทศแคนาดาปีที่แล้วนายดอนได้รับเลือกให้เป็นนักคิดด้านการบริหารจัดการธุรกิจที่ทรงอิทธิพลเป็นอันดับที่ 4 ของโลกโดย Thinkers 50 องค์กรที่จัดอันดับนักคิดทางธุรกิจระดับโลกและในปีเดียวกันนายดอนยังได้รับการประดับเกียรติยศแต่งตั้งในสถานะ Member of the Order of Canada นายดอนเป็นเจ้าของผลงานหนังสือที่ขายดีทั่วโลกอย่าง The Digital Economy และล่าสุดกับ Blockchain Revolution ที่ได้รับการกล่าวขานถึงเป็นอย่างมากเนื่องจากพูดถึงเทคโนโลยีใหม่ที่กำลังมาแรงในโลกอนาคตและทั่วโลกกำลังตื่นตัวเกี่ยวกับแนวความคิดนี้
If a bank hires you as an advisor on this and say, Don, tell us in 5 years' time, where would we be?
If you do nothing, you will be a much smaller organization than you are today.
How smaller? How much smaller? Because,
well, I mean, if whole parts of the industry are being transformed and you're not part of that transformation, you're going to decline. Mm-hmm. Now, when it comes to regulation, I think we do need sensible regulation, including regulation of digital currencies. Mm-hmm. But I encourage regulators to move slowly.
Mm-hmm. So how should we handle bitcoins? Will Bitcoin replace the dollars, the euro, the baht?
I don't think so. I think for the next period in human history, we'll have fiat currencies, but also there'll be all kinds of these new cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, mm-hmm. Ethereum, and so on. Toronto, there's a housekeeper named Annalie Domingo, and for 20 years she's been going to the bank, cashes her check, gets back on the bus, goes to the Western Union office, where she sends a few $100s to her mother in Manila. The money takes 4 to 7 days to get there.
Right.
Her mom never knows when it's going to arrive. The money, she gets charged about 10%.
Western
Union, and it takes 5 hours from her week. Financial institutions that will disappear, mm-hmm. Western Union.
So they call this disrupting yourselves.
Well, the big disruptors like Uber and Airbnb, you open up a newspaper, Google disruptors, and these names will come up. Mm-hmm. Well, they're the ones that are about to be disrupted, mm-hmm. as far as I'm concerned.
Mm-hmm. If you have questions, please raise your hands.
It's gone on a long time.
There will be a microphone going to you. I'm sure you all have a lot of questions on your mind.
I have a translation thing here too. So.
No. Questions should be asked only in English, in Canadian English too.
Oh no.
Anyway, your digital economy, the book, was first written in 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And now you just revised the content. What were some of the wrong predictions you made?
The wrong predictions?
Mm-hmm. None.
Well, it was sobering for me to update the book. Mm-hmm. And now it's wonderful you have it in Thai. Mm-hmm. But for every chapter, I wrote a mini chapter describing here's what happened.
Right.
Here's what I said what happened, and here's what happened. Now, in most cases, what happened, or what I said would happen, has happened. There are some things in that book that I didn't describe at all, like mobility.
Also happened.
It happened, and you won't read a word in the book about mobility.
Why didn't you realize that there was going to be
people were afraid to use computers, and there were no mobile devices.
20 years ago, when you wrote the first version of this book, was the internet there yet? No.
Yeah, no, the internet.
Just beginning.
No, the internet's been around since the 1970s.
I know, but popular use of the internet.
The World Wide Web really became a factor in that year, 1994, because we had a first graphic browser, and that was Mosaic. And then Netscape was the first commercially available browser, and that came out in 1994. You know, Mark Andreessen, who was the founder of Netscape, did a jacket quote for the new edition of the book. And he wrote, 1994 was a great year. We created Netscape, and the web took off. And Don Tapscott wrote the book explaining what it was all about. And it was a very beautiful thing. But where the most shocking thing for me was all this dark side stuff. You see, because I said, this is an age of huge opportunity. Unlike the old media, the television, radio, the printing press, and so on, it's centralized. It's controlled by powerful forces. Everyone's a passive recipient. It's one to many. I said the new media is distributed. It's many to many. It has this awesome neutrality. People will be active. And it will be what we want it to be. And I said, this is a time of vast opportunity. The trouble is,
you were wrong.
This morning I read news about hackers stolen over, I think, like 100,000 bitcoins from the biggest Bitcoin exchange company called Bitfinex, and somehow that is worth, I think, more than $65 million. So I would like to ask, like, how would you share your thought on this? Because since it's supposed to be quite secure, and although you mentioned nothing is unhackable.
It's a good question. First of all, Bitcoin and the Bitcoin blockchain was not hacked. If you want to hack Bitcoin and the Bitcoin blockchain, good luck. Apparently, the Russians have had a big team working on this for 7 years of top computer scientists, and they've been unable to hack that. What was hacked was a business sitting on top of that called an exchange. So there are two lessons there. One is if you're going to build a business on top of a cryptocurrency, make sure it's a solid business that has good software that can't be hacked. But there's also a lesson for you in this room. If you're going to start to think about Bitcoin as an asset where you want to acquire Bitcoin, I wouldn't recommend keeping it in an exchange necessarily. It's better to keep it on a thumb drive in your safe or somewhere where it's going to be more secure.
ร่วมสนุกกับไทม์ไลน์สุทธิชัยยุนเพียงถ่ายภาพหน้าจอรายการตอนกูรูดิจิตอลเทคโนโลยีส่งมาที่ Facebook Fanpage ไทม์ไลน์สุทธิชัยรับไปเลยหนังสือเศรษฐกิจดิจิตอลแปลจาก Digital Economy โดยกูรูดอนทับสกอตจำนวน5รางวัล
บิตคอยน์เป็นสกุลเงินดิจิตอลที่ถูกคิดค้นขึ้นมาเพื่อใช้ในการจ่ายเงินแลกเปลี่ยนสินค้าหรือบริการชนิดใหม่แทนที่เงินตราสกุลดั้งเดิมต่างๆที่เราเคยใช้กันมาเป็นเวลานานแล้วอย่างเช่นสกุลเงินดอลลาร์สหรัฐเยนของญี่ปุ่นสกุลยูโรหรือเงินบาทของไทยซึ่งปกติแล้วหน้าที่หลักของเงินคือการเป็นสื่อกลางสำหรับการแลกเปลี่ยนสินค้าหรือบริการซึ่งเงินตราในรูปแบบใหม่สกุลบิตคอยน์นี้ก็ทำหน้าที่เช่นเดียวกับสิ่งที่เงินตราสกุลต่างๆเคยทำมาเพียงแต่จะมีความแตกต่างบางอย่างจากระบบเดิมอย่างชัดเจน หลักการพื้นฐานของเงินจะทราบว่าในโลกนี้มีหลายสิ่งหลายอย่างที่สามารถทำหน้าที่เป็นเงินได้อย่างเช่นแร่ธาตุบางชนิดหรือว่าสิ่งของที่หายากโดยสิ่งเหล่านั้นจะต้องมีคุณสมบัติดังต่อไปนี้คือ 1. เป็นสิ่งที่ทุกฝ่ายยอมรับในมูลค่า 2. ยากในการปลอมแปลง 3. สามารถส่งต่อได้เปลี่ยนมือได้และ 4. คงทนไม่เสียหายง่ายเกินไปซึ่งบิตคอยน์ได้ถูกออกแบบมาเพื่อที่จะให้เป็นระบบการเงินในโลกออนไลน์โดยจะต้องมีคุณสมบัติที่สำคัญดังต่อไปนี้ครบถ้วนเช่นเดียวกับระบบเงินตรารูปแบบดั้งเดิมแต่อีกหนึ่งคุณสมบัติที่ทำให้บิตคอยน์ต่างไปจากระบบเงินตราอื่นก็คือบิตคอยน์เป็นระบบที่ไม่ได้อยู่ภายใต้ความควบคุมดูแลโดยธนาคารและรัฐบาลใดๆแต่อยู่ได้ด้วยข้อตกลงของผู้ใช้และความซับซ้อนของคณิตศาสตร์เพียงเท่านั้นเนื่องจากคุณสมบัติของบิตคอยน์ที่ไม่ได้บังคับตัวเองให้ต้องอยู่ภายใต้การควบคุมขององค์กรธนาคารขนาดใหญ่หรือภาครัฐทำให้ค่าใช้จ่ายในการบริหารปริมาณเงินนี้รวมไปถึงค่าใช้จ่ายในการทำธุรกรรมลดน้อยลงจากการใช้เงินตราสกุลดั้งเดิมเป็นอย่างมากบิตคอยน์คือข้อตกลงของคนที่จะใช้ข้อมูลที่เข้ารหัสทางคณิตศาสตร์21ล้านชุดว่าจะเป็นสิ่งที่เราใช้แลกเปลี่ยนสินค้าและบริการแทนเงินสกุลแบบดั้งเดิมโดยที่แต่ละบิตคอยน์นี้จะต้องไม่สามารถถูกปลอมแปลงได้แต่ละบิตคอยน์จะถูกสร้างเข้าสู่ระบบโดยซอฟต์แวร์ที่เรียกว่าบิตคอยน์ไมนิ่งที่จะใช้สูตรคำนวณคณิตศาสตร์ขั้นซับซ้อนทำให้ขณะนี้มีการค้นพบบิตคอยน์ใหม่ๆเข้าสู่ระบบจากทั่วโลกในอัตรา6บล็อกต่อชั่วโมงเท่านั้นโดยที่แต่ละบล็อกเท่ากับ25บิตคอยน์ในท้ายที่สุดแล้วจำนวนบิตคอยน์ที่จะมีในระบบจะมีได้แค่21ล้านชุดเท่านั้นโดยที่บล็อกแรกของบิตคอยน์ถูกสร้างขึ้นจากบุคคลลึกลับที่ใช้ชื่อว่าซาโตชิ นากาโมโตะเมื่อวันที่3มกราคม2552
Where the most shocking thing for me was all this dark side stuff. You see, because I said, this is an age of huge opportunity. Unlike the old media, the television, radio, the printing press, and so on, it's centralized. It's controlled by powerful forces. Everyone's a passive recipient. It's one to many. I said the new media is distributed. It's many to many. It has this awesome neutrality. People will be active. And it will be what we want it to be. And I said, this is a time of vast opportunity. The trouble is...
You were wrong.
Well, there are a lot of good things that have happened.
Yeah.
But I said some things could go wrong. We could have growing social inequality if this medium gets captured by large institutions, and that's occurred. I said, we could have our basic right to privacy destroyed
and that
if
has
other
happened.
people capture all this data. I said, we could have a fragmentation of public discourse. I said, I don't think it'll happen, but it could. I said, this technology could be used by evil people to do bad things.
That has happened too.
That has happened. I mean, the greatest fear is that ISIS and these companies are creating blockchain startups that will send out, you know, autonomous agents to do all kinds of things in the society. So it was sobering for me to see how only part of the promise has been fulfilled and we still have a long way to go.
Are you worried about the fact that Google and Facebook are sort of monopolizing the whole social media sphere?
Yes.
That is dangerous.
Yeah, and when you talk about how many people in Thailand use Facebook, that's good news.
It's also bad news.
Yeah, not so good news because Facebook's strategy around the world, and there may well be an executive from Facebook here, and I'm happy to discuss this with you, is that they want everyone in the world to have access to the web through Facebook.
Right.
And Facebook should be one service on an open web. It shouldn't be the only way that poor people can access the internet. That's my view.
Questions?
I just have a quick question. This morning I read a news about hackers stolen over, I think, like 100,000 bitcoins from the biggest Bitcoin exchange company called Bitfinex, and somehow that is worth I think more than $65 million. So I would like to ask, like, how would you share your thought on this? Because since it's supposed to be quite secure, and although you mentioned nothing is unhackable.
It's a good question. First of all, Bitcoin and the Bitcoin blockchain was not hacked. If you want to hack Bitcoin and the Bitcoin blockchain, good luck. Apparently, the Russians have had a big team working on this for 7 years of top computer scientists, and they've been unable to hack that. What was hacked was a business sitting on top of that called an exchange. So there are two lessons there. One is if you're going to build a business on top of a cryptocurrency, make sure it's a solid business that has good software that can't be hacked. But there's also a lesson for you in this room. If you're going to start to think about Bitcoin as an asset where you want to acquire Bitcoin, I wouldn't recommend keeping it in an exchange necessarily. It's better to keep it on a thumb drive in your safe or somewhere where it's going to be more secure. So this also happened with the Ethereum blockchain as well. This is an extraordinary story worth telling here, that in the book, in Blockchain Revolution, Alex and I described some radical new models of the corporation. One we called a distributed autonomous enterprise. We said it's possible to have a company with no people, that it would be a bunch of smart contracts. It's just like what it sounds like. It's a self-executing contract, software that manages authentication of parties, that manages execution of performance, policing of contracts and payments. So you could have a bunch of these smart contracts and some autonomous agents on a blockchain that would just be software. It could raise money from humans, maybe through a crowdfunding campaign, and then it could go about doing the business for which it was chartered. And a year ago we thought, should we publish this? This is pretty far out. And we thought, no, it's possible. So we published it. The week the book came out in America, in May, an organization called the Distributed Autonomous Organization was launched. And it was a company based of smart contracts and autonomous agents on the Ethereum blockchain. And it had no people. And its first job as a company was to go and raise some money. The largest crowdfunding campaign ever conducted up until then raised $15 million. The Distributed Autonomous Organization, the DAO, held a crowdfunding campaign, and in 3 weeks it raised $162 million US.
สนุกกับไทม์ไลน์สุทธิชัยยุนเพียงถ่ายภาพหน้าจอรายการตอนกูรูดิจิตอลเทคโนโลยีส่งมาที่ Facebook Fanpage ไทม์ไลน์สุทธิชัยรับไปเลยหนังสือเศรษฐกิจดิจิตอลแปลจาก Digital Economy โดยกูรูดอนทับสกอตจำนวน5รางวัล
มีคนกล่าวไว้ว่าหากอินเทอร์เน็ตคือเทคโนโลยีที่เปลี่ยนแปลงโลกของเราบล็อกเชนก็คือเทคโนโลยีอันถัดไปซึ่งเรื่องราวของบล็อกเชนเริ่มถูกกล่าวขานมากขึ้นเมื่อสิ่งที่เรียกว่าบิตคอยน์ได้ถือกำเนิดขึ้นมาเพราะเบื้องหลังของบิตคอยน์มีบล็อกเชนเป็นแกนหลักอยู่ข้างหลังนั่นเองบล็อกเชนเปรียบเสมือนฐานข้อมูลหรือสมุดบัญชีที่คอยควบคุมดูแลการจัดเก็บทุกๆข้อมูลหรือทุกๆกิจกรรมของการติดต่อสื่อสารที่เติบโตขึ้นตลอดเวลาบล็อกเชนมี5จุดเด่นที่แตกต่างจากระบบฐานข้อมูลทั่วไปคือ 1. แชร์ข้อมูลออกสู่สาธารณะเซิร์ฟเวอร์หรือว่าโนดต่างๆจะมีหน้าที่ดูแลข้อมูลแหล่งเก็บบันทึกข้อมูลหรือที่เราเรียกกันว่าบล็อกและทุกๆโนดจะมีความสามารถที่ดูได้ว่าข้อมูล transaction นั้นๆถูกจัดเก็บในบล็อกใด 2. ไม่มีศูนย์กลางในการตรวจสอบข้อมูลการติดต่อสื่อสารใดๆที่เกิดขึ้น 3. มีความปลอดภัยข้อมูลที่จัดเก็บในบล็อกจะไม่มีการเปลี่ยนแปลงเอาค่าคืนกลับมาไม่ได้หรือแม้กระทั่งทำลายข้อมูลนั้นก็ตาม 4. มีความน่าเชื่อถือ ด้วยธรรมชาติของการไม่มีศูนย์กลางจัดเก็บข้อมูลดังนั้นระบบจึงต้องฟังความคิดเห็นของคนส่วนใหญ่เมื่อมีการติดต่อสื่อสารเกิดขึ้นจากคนที่ไม่รู้จักและ 5. ทำงานอัตโนมัติซอฟต์แวร์จะถูกเขียนขึ้นให้ป้องกันการเขียนข้อมูลซ้ำซ้อนและการจัดเก็บข้อมูลการติดต่อสื่อสารก็ดำเนินการแบบอัตโนมัติเช่นกัน
So this also happened with the Ethereum blockchain as well. This is an extraordinary story worth telling here that in the book, in Blockchain Revolution, Alex and I described some radical new models of the corporation. One we called a distributed autonomous enterprise. We said it's possible to have a company with no people, that it would be a bunch of smart contracts. It's just like what it sounds like. It's a self-executing contract, software that manages authentication of parties, that manages execution of performance, policing of contracts and payments. So you could have a bunch of these smart contracts and some autonomous agents on a blockchain that would just be software. It could raise money from humans, maybe through a crowdfunding campaign, and then it could go about doing the business for which it was chartered. And a year ago we thought, should we publish this? This is pretty far out. And we thought, no, it's possible. So we published it. The week the book came out in America, in May, an organization called the Distributed Autonomous Organization was launched. And it was a company based of smart contracts and autonomous agents on the Ethereum blockchain. And it had no people. And its first job as a company was to go and raise some money. Mm-hmm. The largest crowdfunding campaign ever conducted up until then raised $15 million. The Distributed Autonomous Organization, the DAO, held a crowdfunding campaign, and in 3 weeks it raised $162 million US.
And what was the project about?
Well, the purpose of the company is to invest in blockchain startups. Now, the reason I raise it is because it had a problem too, not surprising, that the DAO used a smart contract that had a technical flaw, and someone went into it and moved $50 million in Ether, the Ethereum currency, into a place where they could eventually turn it into US dollars and take it for themselves. So a lot of people said, oh, again, it shows blockchains don't work. Well, no. It wasn't Ethereum that was hacked. It was this new entity that was hacked. And it's rich with all kinds of lessons about how to build successful businesses in this new environment.
Mm-hmm. Next question.
One key word of this seminar is leapfrog development. So my question is how blockchain technology can leapfrog, say, education in Thailand, for that matter.
Education.
Lift off and
leapfrogging.
Oh, leapfrog. Sorry. Okay. Well, thank you. You remember at the beginning I said we have industrial models of all of our institutions, and education is one. Somebody has something, they push it out to passive recipients. I'm a teacher, I have knowledge, you're a student, you don't. I transmit it to you. It's one size through a lecture, one size fits all, centered on me, and the students are passive recipients. So the lecture is a good model of learning for the 15th century, but there are much better models that exist today. I was joking last night over dinner that to me the lecture is the process whereby the notes of a lecturer go to the notes of a student without going through the brains of either one.
Right.
Now, I appreciate the irony that I just gave you a 1-hour lecture. But lectures are actually not a good way of learning. I was just trying to convince you of a couple of ideas. that a digital economy strategy has these elements, and it's a great thing to do. But we can now move to a very different model of learning, and it's simple to me. It combines computer-based learning, where everyone has a tutor, their own private tutor, and the tutor is software. And you do that only for a certain class of things where there's a right or wrong answer. It's called mastery. 4 plus 4 is 8. There's a right or wrong answer. The best way to learn that is self-paced on a computer. Then that frees up the teacher and the student and everybody else to do all the other stuff, which is small group discussion, debates, projects, collaborative learning in a classroom. Now, blockchains can be very key to that, because eventually we'll have an immutable record of the truth on many, many topics, and blockchains will also be key to our credentials. So each one of you will have your own personal identity. Right now, our identities are being captured by other institutions in society. Each of us leaves a trail of crumbs as we go throughout life. The virtual you. And the virtual you may know more about you than you do, because you can't remember what you bought a year ago or what you said a year ago or your exact location a year ago. And that's a great thing, except the virtual you is not owned by you. It's owned by Facebook, it's owned by Google, and it's owned by big banks, and it's owned by governments, and so on. So there are projects underway today on blockchains whereby you can have your own identity and you control the virtual you. And it moves around with you in the digital world. So if you want to do a transaction, it gives that shred of information that's required. Why, if I buy something on Amazon or on any online, why should I be giving away everything about my life, including my age and my credit card, my social security, and my transaction?
But you're doing it now, right? You're giving out all the information about yourself.
Amazon doesn't even need to know who I am. All they need to know is that they got paid. And the virtual Don is going to do that. So the virtual Don is also going to collect my educational credentials. And it's not just that I graduated with this degree from there and so on, that this may be an educational credential, that you attended this event, or that I gave this seminar to you. And this, I think, will create a much more rich world of identity, where, for example, if you're a company like Rob McEwen and you're trying to find out where your gold is, you can send an agent out onto the blockchain, and it will be able to identify all of those people with deep, deep knowledge about how to analyze geological data. And that will enable us to have much more network models of the firm. It will also help us link up talent with companies and other organizations that need talent. These are all very long answers to short questions.
No, reasonable.
In psychological terms, that's called punishment. It tends to extinguish questions.
It's a privilege. Once you're on the stage, you have that privilege. One question from the floor. Do you yourself invest in any blockchain projects?
Well, first
because
of all,
you know so much, you should invest. Put money where your mouth is.
Well, there are two parts to that. One is, I don't view cryptocurrencies as an asset which I should collect. And, something like Bitcoin in its most limited form is an asset. It goes up, it goes down. And that should be of interest to you only if you're a speculator. It's more interesting as a cryptocurrency, and it's most interesting as an underlying technology, which is blockchain. I don't invest in the asset because I don't want to have a conflict of interest. I don't want someone to say, Tapscott is up there talking about all this because he wants the price of his asset to go up.
Maybe it's also because you have no real confidence in it. You just talk about it.
Well,
or write about it.
You've dug into my brain deeper than I can understand. No, but I am absolutely starting to mentor, incubate, and invest in companies in this space. And I'll tell you a funny
Space?
Well, blockchain companies that are using blockchain. And I'll tell you why. And this is a very embarrassing story. So I wrote The Digital Economy. It came out in '95, and that was the year that eBay took off. After I'd published the book, eBay came to my attention. No one had ever written an article on them. There had been no case study ever about eBay. And my company went, and we did a big, in-depth report about eBay. And we said, this is very important. It's going to change price discovery mechanisms. It will change the way that we establish trust in communities. They have this thing called the feedback forum that enables the syndication of trust. We went on and on. And we said, this is going to be huge. After I wrote that report, someone named Jeff Skoll invested $70,000 in eBay. His investment today is worth $4.5 billion. But I wrote a great report.
You didn't invest.
No.
You're stupid.
So he has $4.5 billion.
Did you blame yourself for that?
He has $4.5 billion. I have a great report
Okay.
that nobody knows about.
You're still proud of that, right?
Well, I'm just showing you. Sometimes you're not right about everything.
No. I'll end this session with this very interesting quote in this book too. Don says the next era of the digital age is delivering unlimited possibilities, significant dangers, unknown roadblocks, formidable challenges, and a future that is far from certain. It all sounds so uncertain. It's so vague, so ambiguous. Why should we trust you?
You shouldn't. You should form your own opinion. Let me say this. We already know that there are huge opportunities that are playing out right now. And Annalee Domingo now has 5 hours a week of her time back, and her mother knows exactly when the money's going to arrive, and she doesn't lose 10% of her precious money. And that's one of dozens of stories of things that are happening today. But there are big challenges and roadblocks. Uses a lot of energy. How do we overcome that problem? Maybe governments will stifle it. Maybe bad guys will use it. Maybe the community itself will not find the way to self-govern like the original internet community did. There are 10 big problems. And what Alex and I did is we went through every one of them, and he said, we have to put this problem in box number 1 or box number 2.
Right.
Box number 1 is reasons why this is a bad idea and it's not going to work. Okay? Box number 2 was implementation challenges. And all of those...
Meaning that those projects should be attempted or tried,
yes,
but may fail.
Meaning we have an unlimited opportunity here and a bunch of implementation challenges. So I would encourage all of you to don't stand back, get involved. The first thing you should do is go and download a wallet onto your mobile phone and buy 100 baht in Bitcoin and then buy something. Buy this book.
This book.
This would be a very good one. No, you want to buy this book in massive volume, very large numbers of this book, thousands of copies. No, that's number 1, because personal use is a precondition. Remember the first time you ever used the web, and you went, "Oh, really? I put something on my computer and everyone in the world can see it?" You'll have the same epiphany. Number 2 is do get yourself educated. Read the book. People are reading this book from the beginning to the end, and it's very helpful. And there are all kinds of other useful sources of information. Number 3, find yourself some talent in your company or government. There are people who are interested in this. There are programmers who know about this. Search them out and give them some authority to start to investigate. And fourth, get a pilot going where you're trying something out. If you're a government, every single department will be affected by this. Healthcare, the environment. The Deputy Prime Minister talked about this. We can have carbon credits being captured on a blockchain. Opportunities for healthcare. Imagine healthcare records where every baby born in Thailand gets a blockchain-based record that's also a social network for health, where throughout their life they can better manage their own health, reducing the cost of healthcare and enabling...
If we start making babies.
Yes, well, that's a good point. You're going to need to make babies. But let's start to think about this, and let's start to get involved. And it's so much like it was 20 years ago, where people were skeptical and they were wondering, and those who showed curiosity were the ones that tended to benefit.
Really, last question. Give the Thai government 3 pieces of advice.
The Thai government?
You're here in Thailand.
Don't regulate too fast.
You're telling the NBTC?
Yeah. I'm telling all regulators. You don't want to regulate Bitcoin, blockchain stuff too fast. You already have laws that cover criminal activity and all kinds of other stuff. Number 2, launch a big program so that people within government learn about this and that they start to develop curiosity. And number 3, get some projects going where you're exploring different opportunities within the government for the use of this technology. Because it's not just about building a new model of government. Do you know that Hillary Clinton, as part of her technology strategy, embraced blockchain technology for the rethinking of the entire civil service in the United States? But it's not just about government. It's about the corporation. It's about competitiveness. It's about the economy. It's about healthcare. It's about education and all of these things.
Is it true that you don't like Donald Trump? Judging from
I'm
your
not
comments.
a political person. I may have given away my bias a little bit. But I worked with government leaders of all different stripes.
So it has been a very enlightening session. It has been very educational. And for me, you challenged me to think of the future with an open mind and ask more questions. Thank you very much. Give Don a big hand, please.